This is my dad. He was a master of DIY and a woodworking genius. But Agile, he knew nothing about Agile. Or did he? Hi, this is Gary. Welcome to Development That Pays. Take a look at this.
What I want you two to do, just to confirm that we do know the basics, both at the same time, cook me an omelette. Show me something that I can eat and be happy with.
Slightly overcooked.
Slightly? It tastes like f***ing rubber. I'm both overcooked. That was shit, by any standard.
Mr. Ramsey's omelette test has the dual merits of sounding easy and, at the same time, being not that easy at all. The equivalent test for the DIY world must surely be the challenge of hanging a shelf. That's what we're going to have a crack at today. Here's the shelf and here's the wall. I'm going to be hanging this shelf twice. Firstly, using the method that made sense to me as a 19-year-old, and then I'm going to hang it again using the method taught to me by my dad. It all sounds very mundane, but what it can teach you about Agile may just blow your mind. Just before we jump in, please be assured that I'm well aware that DIY isn't the world's greatest spectator sport, so you can expect me to fast forward through the tedious stuff. The shelf is to be positioned so that its top middle is on this mark. Here's a more technical view showing the 4 screw holes. I'm going to start by taking a couple of measurements: the distance between the screw holes horizontally, the distance from the top to the top screw holes, and the distance between the screw holes vertically. Now to transfer the dimensions to the wall. I'll use a spirit level to draw a perfectly horizontal line through the center mark. Now I'll measure a distance equal to half the distance between the screw holes. Do that in both directions. Spirit level again for 2 vertical lines. Measure down from the top, then again for the vertical distance between the screw holes. I'll do the same for the other side. Next, it's time for a spot of drilling, which is hard to draw, so I'm going to cheat and switch to a side view. 2 holes for the left side, 2 for the right side. In with the wall plugs. Offer up, I think that's the technical term. Offer up the shelf. In with the first screw. In with the second. Oh, hold on. Maybe I measured incorrectly, or maybe I made a mistake when I transferred the measurements to the wall. Maybe it was the drilling. The walls in my house are 100 years old. It's pretty difficult to drill a hole exactly where you've marked it. The chances are that even if I measured perfectly and transferred the measurements perfectly, that each of the holes is off a bit. And Murphy's law dictates that they won't all be off by the same amount in the same direction. No, Murphy will see to it that they're off in distance and direction to such a degree as to maximize my displeasure. Even if by some miracle I'm able to get all 4 screws in the hole, it's pretty unlikely that it isn't. It's not level. We'll try my dad's method in just a second, but before we do that, here are the list of steps I just went through. I measured the shelf, I transferred the measurements to the wall, I drilled the holes, I fitted the wall plugs, and then I fitted, or at least I attempted to fit, the screws. Then and only then did I do a final check for level. Is it just me, or does this look a tiny bit like Waterfall? Let's move on and take a look at my dad's method. Now, it's only fair to warn you that my dad had a superpower when it comes to DIY projects. He was better than anyone I've known in spotting the one thing that's important in any project. And for this project, hanging a shelf, it would take him less than a millisecond to realize that the one thing that's important is that the shelf be flat. Oh, and he was also pretty good at not measuring. Keep an eye out for how often he doesn't measure. First step, mark the middle of the shelf. My dad would do this without any form of rule or tape measure, just with a stick and a pencil. Shelf onto the wall, align the marks, spirit level, get it perfectly flat, mark the position of 1 hole. The shelf comes down, drill the hole, wall plug in, offer up the shelf again, screw in the screw but not too tight, spirit level again, adjust the shelf until it's flat, hold in place, mark the position of the top hole on the right hand side, rotate the shelf out of the way, drill the second hole, press on the wall plug, rotate the shelf back, and screw in the second screw. Tighten both screws and check for level. Not quite right, loosen the screws, gentle tap. My dad called this offering encouragement. Check for level once again. From here on, it's all downhill. Mark the position of the last 2 screws, off with the shelf, drill the holes, in with the plugs, back in with the top 2 screws, check for level and offer encouragement as necessary, tighten the screws. One final check of level, at this point almost a formality, and it's spot on. Nice one, Dad. If I show you all the steps involved in my dad's method, then it's quite clear that there are a lot of them. There's very little in the way of mass production. The last 2 screws were handled more or less together, but other than that, it was one thing at a time. If I squish up the tasks, I think you'll notice something interesting. There's a pattern, a bit of work followed by a check for level, repeated again and again. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this to me looks agile. This is nothing short of a revelation. My natural inclination as a 19-year-old was to hang the shelf using a waterfall process. My dad's natural inclination, as a craftsman with 60 plus years experience, was to hang the shelf using an agile process. My mind is blown. I'm tempted to leave it there, but one of our shelves is still wonky. Clearly I screwed up, but I'm not sure where. Was it the measuring, was it the marking out, or was it the drilling? I've no idea. This puts me in the rather uncomfortable position of having to do better without knowing exactly where to do better. Contrast that with my dad's process. If at any point the check for level fails, it's obvious what's gone wrong. It's clear what has to be redone. And what has to be redone is always a small amount of work. Thank you very much for watching. Today's subject was obviously very close to my heart, and I really enjoyed putting it together, and I do hope that you enjoyed watching it. And as always, I look forward to talking to you next time.